All right, working on this 2007 EC300. I'm going to make a quick video on replacing the clutch slave cylinder guts. And got the kit here. And hopefully this is the right kit with the right stuff in it. Spring looks like it goes there. I've never had this one apart, so I don't know. There's another O-ring. Must be for the outer seal. And then this will be for the inner seal for the clutch. And we'll see how this goes. Never had this apart before, so we're going to find out. Did this recently on the beta trials bike. It was real easy. So just in preparation, the fluid I have is the Magura blood or the mineral oil. And this AJP, I don't know if you can see it says AJP right there. This green top or green cap from the factory supposedly means mineral oil only, if I understand it right. I don't know about, I think the DOT brake fluid, whether it's 3 or 4, I don't know, but I think it has a black cap. Don't quote me on that, but I know the green ones denote mineral oil. And it even says use only mineral oil. Okay, clear enough. So I just changed this recently, so I'm going to try to save as much of this as I can when I pull it apart. And so I have some plugs over here. Hopefully I can stick a plug in something to keep it all from draining out. And if I can't, well, I'll lose it everywhere, and that's just how it's going to be. I have enough to replace it. So the first 2 bolts we took out are the 2 bolts that hold in the chain guard and the case guard. So I took the chain off, took the sprocket off, and the sprocket's just a little snap ring, real easy. And make sure you account for your O-rings when you take your O-ring chain off if you have an O-ring chain. Okay, so this is the last bolt here. I'll have to look up the torque specs on these if there are any. And so 1, 2, 3 bolts, that's it. And then this should come off. Now, the only concern that I have is, or the concern that I've had, I'm sorry, is that when I've occasionally, not occasionally, but every 3 or 4 rides, I'll have this collection of dirt and grime here. And sometimes I'll have a few drips on my garage floor or on my floor of my trailer, and it doesn't smell like, you know, motor oil, engine oil, which is what I run in the crankcase. And it doesn't look like that. It's kind of light, it's kind of clear, it's still oil for sure, but so I've just kind of assumed that it's clutch fluid. I've just never been able to, let's see, that should give me enough to work on there. I've just never been able to really identify the source. I'm assuming it's not coming from around here because it doesn't seem like engine oil, and engine oil would come from around there. It's not coming from around here. I thought it might be chain oil coming off the chain and slapping up here, but it's super light and super thin and super clear, and when my bike just sits, it drips out. And it doesn't really drip, it's just this kind of this light seep, and once in a while it'll drip on the floor, just like 1 or 2 drips. When I've been able to collect it, it's been really thin. The level here has never appreciably dropped, the level in the master cylinder. So in the slave cylinder, I'm just going to replace the gut since I have them, and see if see if the leak goes away. Hopefully it will. I got this on reverse. Okay, there's the spring pushing this out, obviously. So be real careful about pulling all this apart, seeing which way what goes. Let me just go ahead and snap these upper 2 here. Give me a little bit of working room. Okay, so looking up inside here, this looks like the piece I have to replace. And let's just shine a light on it here so it's a little more visible. And that looks right. It looks like there's a big O-ring around the outside. That O-ring is probably what's leaking. Since I have it apart, I'm just going to go ahead and replace the inner piston though. And looking right here, here's our push rod. It pushes our clutch spring. And I'm not going to mess with that just in case there's pieces inside. I don't think there is, if I can remember right from the other side. A little bit of motor oil right around there though. So we'll clean this off with a rag. We'll clean this off with a rag. And let's go ahead and take this apart. Pull this seal out right here. And this is where it's going to come leaking everywhere. So I'm going to clean it first. Move the light around here so hopefully it's more visible to the camera. Take that bolt out. Don't want any crud in here at all, if at all possible. So this outer seal, there it is. That looks to be about the same size as the other seal. Doesn't look to be in too bad a condition, but if this is the original, it's over 7 years old now, so just make sure they match up here. This is the old one. This is the new one. And the new one's a little bit thicker, it looks like, tiny bit thicker. So that's the new one. The old one we're going to put down here. Keep it out of the way. And here's the spring and the new piece. Now what I should have had ready was some clutch fluid. To minimize loss, we're going to try to do this quickly. And some clutch fluid over that, just so the O-rings are well lubricated with mineral oil. Okay, there's the old one. No crud inside there, that's good. Here's the new one. Okay, that should be enough to hold it in place. Should make sure it seats there okay. I might push it up past that first ring, and it does. Alright, so now I'm going to take a clean as possible rag. Clean out this groove. Take the new O-ring and just for good measure we'll lubricate this with some mineral oil. Then we'll put the new ring around this outer perimeter here. And this actually seated pretty far inside here, so we're going to make sure it seats all the way. Push it all the way around. Okay. Now, I'm going to make sure to clean all the mating surfaces. Hopefully that's coming out in the camera. I'm just going to make sure the mating surfaces are there nice and clean and smooth. I don't feel any burrs or anything on there. Okay, what I want to do is wipe that dirt away from the top so it doesn't fall in. I'm putting this back together. Okay, so this is a little bit crooked right here. We're going to see if we just can't straighten it up. And that should be straight. And it'll center itself around that. Once that bearing hits, this will center itself and straighten itself up. Okay, I think that's good. So the mating surfaces here are clean. A little crud there. And what I'd like to do is take this bolt, push it through. Whatever crud it pushes through, I want to go ahead and get it out now through all these little holes. These are a little bit longer. To make sure nothing gets in the middle there to impair my sealing surface. Okay, good. Let's put it back together. Okay, so to get this back in without taking off the clutch springs on the other side, we're gonna, these screws are the same length, by the way, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up. Thank goodness. Now these are the two back screws. The one screw in the front is shorter. So we're gonna go ahead and put these in place just temporarily. And want to make sure these are all clean after they go through. I had to clean these parts up, these are pretty nasty. And get these lined up here. T-handle. Okay, we'll try to kind of tighten these progressively so we're not loading everything. Okay. At different angles. Okay. Now I want to take the light and just check around the outer edge here. Make sure that it is seated all the way around. And it's seated down here. You probably can't see it in the camera very well. It is seated down there. And it's seated toward the back. I can't even get a fingernail down inside there, so that's good. We're going to put one more little torque on each of these, just a snug. Okay, one final one on this because this is a critical one. Then we're going to spin these ones off here. All right, now what's left is just bleeding this. So I'm going to put a hose on and just let fluid passively drain through. And as the fluid comes out, just make sure all the air bubbles come out, then tighten it. Then we'll see if we can build some clutch pressure, see if it works the clutch, and find out if it worked or not. Okay, so GasGas clutches are great, but they're not that great. So I know there's no clutch pressure being built there. So what we're going to do is take the top off. Okay, so the reservoir actually looks pretty full right now. A few bubbles coming up through the system right there. So what we're going to do is put this little hose on here, and it's just going to drip into here. Hopefully. Maybe we need to loosen it first with the multi-point. There we go. Okay, so just real quick, we took the cap off, and the reservoir's still kind of full. Obviously, it's not building any pressure. You can still see some bubbles coming up right there every once in a while. And so there's some bubbles in the line already. We knew that. And here we just put a hose on the nipple. Cling. Just put a hose on the nipple here. Pop it on. And this will allow, as the fluid comes up, that no air will go right back into the system. So right now we're just going to turn this and open it. Not very much, doesn't have to be opened very much. And there comes some fluid right there. And the last time I did this, I just passively bled it. So you can see squeezing the lever helps it go a little faster. What we might end up doing is back bleeding this a little bit to force any air out back up through the system. All right, so I fill the master up a couple times, let it passively drain. The fluid that comes out seems to be clearer. What I'm going to do is tighten this down in a minute here with the 7mm. This is 7, by the way. And add some fluid here. Still all sorts of air coming out there, isn't it? So what we'll do is back bleed this. So in order to back bleed, we're just going to connect our little Walmart syringe here. Oh, there went on my fluid, drat. Just what I didn't want to happen. And now the fluid is nice and clear. Again. And so what I want the level of fluid to do is come up to right there. And this shouldn't take a whole lot. Well, there's the air bubbles coming through that, I let the level get too low there. Okay, now we're going to take this, connect this. We have all the air bubbles out of the line. Looks like it. This is all continuous fluid down to here. And what we're going to do is put some pressure on this until fluid comes pouring out here. Hopefully we'll see air bubbles come out here. I've just put this towel under here to catch the fluid. Hopefully it won't end up all over the bike. Okay, so here goes some pressure. We should see the level here rise. Unless I closed it there too much. Okay, there it comes squirting out. See it? Wow. Keep a little bit of pressure on it. You can see the little head of fluid pushing up right there as the fluid rises. I don't want to push air into the system, but I'll probably push this fluid down to pretty close. I don't see any bubbles coming out anymore. So this is promising. This is good. We'll probably call that good right there. Snug that up. Oh yeah, there's my clutch right there. Oh yeah, baby. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. You can still one finger it, but nice and firm. Excellent. So we'll put a little vacuum on this, pull that off. Squirt that waste fluid down there. Put this on, make sure this is snug. Okay, that's snug. Don't want any tighter than that. We'll put our cap back on. Brake foot on the seat. And real quick, we're going to take this edge and make sure there's no dirt or anything along the edge there. And same with this. Make sure this is all clean. It's clean to begin with, so I just washed the bike. Nothing worse than working on a dirty bike. So we're just going to look at the parts here real quick. This is the piston, and the piston has two O-rings and has a spring behind it. And so this is how it's oriented inside the clutch slave cylinder on this AJP. And so when you pull your clutch lever in, it builds hydraulic pressure in the line here, and that pressure comes down and comes behind this piston. And what that does is it puts hydraulic pressure against the back of the piston, pushing the piston that direction. And so what's against the piston right there is the push rod, right? And that push rod goes all the way across that long skinny rod that was, you could see sticking out right there. That long skinny rod goes all the way to the other side, and that's what pushes, when the hydraulic pressure builds here, it pushes against the piston, pushes the push rod that way. It pushes the pressure plate away from the clutch pack, which relieves the tension on the clutch pack. So when it's pushing that away, the hydraulic pressure has to be more than those 6 springs that hold your clutch pack in. Okay, so that hydraulic pressure overcomes the tension on those springs, pushes the pressure plate away, relieving the tension on all the steels and all the frictions, and so they don't engage, they just spin against each other, and there's no friction, there's no tension on them to cause enough friction for them to stick together. Okay, so then when you let your clutch lever out, you disengage your, or you engage your clutch, you let your clutch lever out, that actually engages the clutch and engages the plates, and so that takes the hydraulic pressure off here. The hydraulic pressure back up the line. It takes that pressure off. It allows those 6 springs on the other side to push against the push rod, and the push rod pushes the plunger this way, and those 6 springs are stronger than the single spring here, and so that pushes the plunger back this way. Okay, and then your clutch is engaged, and then your bike's driving. So that's real elementary principles, but the way I understand it. I'm no mechanic, but that's kind of the basics behind it in elementary terms. And so hopefully this fixes it. Hopefully there will be no more leaky, and I love my gasser all over again. Now the only other thing I think I could have replaced is these copper washers here and here, and that might have made a difference. So what I'm going to do, because it could be leaking there and there as well, and I always check the nipple to make sure it wasn't leaking around the nipple, that the nipple wasn't loose or that the oil wasn't leaking around there. This was always dry inside, so that was never an issue. I guess it could have been leaking from up here and draining down too. So I'm going to just put a wrench on this and just put a quick, see if I can put a little bit of a tweak on it, just to make sure it's snugged up good enough, and call it good.